Welcome to the Model Health Show, Dr. Bruce Lipton. How you doing today, Bruce?
Shawn, I am so excited to be with you. You're a hot guy out here in the world helping us move through this evolution that's going on right now. So all your words of wisdom are very significant to me and to that audience who I appreciate. So let me just thank them.
Yes.
The audience to me is important because we're facing an evolutionary upheaval.
Yeah.
And the only way out of it is information, knowledge. Knowledge is power. And I think that you've been making great headway offering knowledge to people, empowering them, and helping us get through these very interesting times.
Definitely. I couldn't have said it better, and I appreciate that so much, Bruce. As I've told the audience, I'm very, very excited to have you on because you are so influential in my thinking. But I want to know what influenced you. I want a little bit of your superhero origin story. And I'd love to know, what got you interested in biology and science in the first place?
Well, I guess everything starts with our teachers, I think going to school, the one teacher that just excited me among all the others was the science teacher.
Yeah.
And especially when I was in second grade and they brought a microscope into the classroom and we all lined up the students in the class to stand on a little box, look down into the microscope and I'm waiting. And finally I get up there and I look in there and there's this paramecium moving around and an amoeba crawling around. And I'm looking at them and I was going wow, they're like sentient beings. I didn't think that in second grade, but what I realized is they weren't bouncing around like pinball, just hitting things. They were looking over here, then they move over here. And at some point in my mind, it's oh my God, these are like little people.
Mm.
And being a little guy myself in second grade, it was always fun to find something smaller than me.
Right.
And there they were. And it was exciting because I ended up becoming an electron microscopist in graduate school and then used that in my research in medical school.
So initially, what was the transition so you just kind of fell in love with science, with biology, and you just chose this career path. But what was the transition from that to eventually kind of having this epiphany about what's actually happening with our cells and with genetics?
Well, I'm teaching in the medical school. I'm doing research, and the teaching involves what is something called genetic determinism. That's a belief that genes determine the character of our lives. And unfortunately, the population is still imbued with that belief that they think that genes are going to turn on and off and control them and give them cancer or diabetes. And then I say, well, what's relevant about that? And I say, when we teach genetic determinism, what we're teaching is victimization, that a person is a victim of their heredity. In other words, they got genes. The genes are going to determine the character of their lives. They don't control the genes. They didn't pick the genes. They can't change the genes. And all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, my life is programmed by these genes. I could get cancer. I can get Alzheimer's. I get diabetes. And it's and then what do you do about it? You say, no, can't do anything about it. And all of a sudden you realize what we've done is program people to be powerless. It's no, you have no power over your life. The genes do. So I'm teaching powerlessness to medical students who are going to, work with patients. At the same time, I was doing research in the lab on stem cells. And just to give people an understanding about stem cells, a human body is actually made out of 50 trillion cells. The cells are the living entity. When I say Bruce, you say Shawn, that's a name for a community of 50 trillion cells. You say, that's a name for me. And I go, yeah, but me is a community. So the cells are who we are. And every day out of the 50 trillion, we lose hundreds of billions of cells, just natural cells falling out, skin sloughing off. Even the entire lining of the digestive tract is replaced every 3 days. It's nearly a trillion cells, It's okay, you're losing these cells, but you're replacing them. The question is, where did the new cells come from? And the answer is stem cells. I say, well, what are stem cells? I say, the moment before you were born, I do a biopsy on your fetal tissue, and I say, oh, here's a cell. Oh, this is an embryonic cell. I wait 1 minute after you're born, do the same biopsy, look at the same cell, and now I go, oh, that's a stem cell. So basically what the point is, a stem cell is an embryonic cell. It's multipotential. Yeah. And so your body is filled with stem cells to replace the hundreds of billions of cells every day. So I'm cloning that, and that means I take one stem cell, put it in a dish all by itself, and it divides every 10 or 12 hours. So first there's one cell, then 2, 4, 8, doubling. After a week, 30,000 cells in the Petri dish. What's important so far is that all 30,000 cells are genetically identical because they came from one parent. Mm-hmm. So I have 30,000 genetically identical cells. I split the cells into 3 different Petri dishes. But what I do, because I make the culture medium, which is the environment for the cells, that's what I grow cells in. Cells are like fish. They live in an aquarium of fluid. That's why if you cut yourself open, fluid leaks out. There's an aquarium inside. So I make the aquarium medium, culture medium. And because I synthesize it myself, I change some of the composition. So in other words, 3 dishes with genetically identical cells, but the culture medium is chemically different in each of the 3 dishes. So there's 3 different environments. In one dish, the stem cells form muscle. In the second dish, the genetically identical stem cells form bone. And in the third dish, genetically identical stem cells now form fat cells. And the question is, well, what controls whether it's a bone or muscle or fat? And it turns out not the genes, because they all had the same genes. Yeah. What was it? It was the environment. And it's like, oh my God, why is that relevant? Because, we talk about genetic determinism, genes controlling things, and you don't control the genes. The new science revealed, no, the environment was controlling the genes. And I say, what's relevant? I go, well, my God, I can change the environment myself. So in other words, I can change the environment of my cells and change their genetics. And that makes me not a victim, but a master. Yeah. And then you say, well, okay, Bruce, this is cells in a Petri dish. What the heck does it have to do with me? And I go, okay, here's the beautiful connection. As I said, we're not a one entity. We're a community of 50 trillion cells. So essentially, we are skin-covered Petri dishes. And inside of the skin is 50 trillion cells. And I have culture medium. The original culture medium is blood. So like if I'm growing cells in a plastic dish and I make culture medium, I base the composition on the blood of the organism I got the cells from. I grow human cells. I look at human blood composition and synthesize that in a lab. If I grow mouse cells, I look at mouse blood and try to grow that. That's the environment for cells. So I say, wait a minute. I'm a skin-covered Petri dish. I have culture medium, blood. And so the same thing happens in my body as occurs in a plastic dish, and that is the chemistry of my blood, my culture medium, controls my behavior and my genetics. Okay? And I go, okay, wait. And then I go, yeah, but what controls the chemical composition of your culture medium? In the lab, I make it, synthesize it. Right. In your body, I say, yeah, but who synthesizes the blood? I go, the brain is the chemist. Okay? And then I go, okay, what chemicals should the brain release into the blood? And all of a sudden it goes, oh, whatever picture you have in your mind, the brain will take that picture and break it down into chemistry that matches the picture. So the culture medium called blood in your body has chemistry, but the chemistry is a complement to the image in your mind. If you have a healthy image in your mind, then of course you have healthy chemistry. But if you have a negative image in your mind, then you create chemistry that is negative and disempowers you. So you say, wow, so my thoughts change into chemistry, which control my genes. I go, yes. And then I give the biggest example everybody's familiar with is called placebo effect. Yeah. I say, well, a person's not well. A doctor said, oh, here's a drug that, this is the hottest new drug for you. And you believe it. You take the drug, you get better, and then find out it was a sugar pill. So the truth is, what healed you? And the answer was simply your belief in the sugar pill. It was just your perception, your belief. And why is it relevant? Because that same healing quality occurs whether you take the drug or you don't take the drug. You can heal yourself if you have the right picture. You don't have the right picture, you try to compensate with pharmaceutical drugs. And I go, worst thing possible. Pharmaceutical drugs on the whole, there are some very important drugs, few. But the mass of drugs are very disruptive of the chemistry of your body because you're the one that controls the chemistry. You don't need the drug. And this is why it becomes so important for people to recognize, wait, if I'm not well, I'm the one that can fix it. I don't need to go see somebody else. And that's the power of the new biology, that
Yes.
you are controlling your biology.
There's so
Whew.
much to unpack there. Amazing, amazing, and very empowering. There's certain things I want to circle back to, but just
Yes.
to give everybody a heads up, we did a show a while back, and we talked about pluripotent and multipotent and adult stem cells and all this stuff. We'll put that in the show notes to have a deeper understanding of that. But Bruce was giving us a highlight into something very important, that stem cells, these are basically seed cells, and they can change and become different plants, if you will, based on the environment. And he just said something so profound, that your thoughts become chemistry. That's the big tweetable for the day, because literally thoughts of fear and stress and worries creating a certain chemical soup that's immediately influencing your genetic expression. And he was in the lab looking at this process happen. And, you see the big headlines today, even on Time Magazine, we found the fat gene. Now, if we could just create a drug to address this fat gene, we're all squared. But the reality is there's a large percentage of people who have this fat gene who don't become obese. And it's because of what's going on between their ears and also the resulting lifestyle choices that they make.
Yeah. Shawn, there's two words that conventional science mixes up. Well, it's not conventional science. Actually, the media, in talking about science, mixes up. And these two words are correlation and causation. They use these words interchangeably. A gene causes cancer. I go, no. A gene is correlated with cancer. It does not cause cancer. See, so we have to get out of the belief that genes are making decisions and genes are controlling our lives. And this is why the new science, epigenetics, is a revolution that will change the planet. It is as much a revolution as when Newtonian physics went into quantum physics and the world changed. Today, going from genetics to epigenetics is the same massive jump that will change civilization. And I say, well, what's the difference? They almost sound the same. And I go, when I say genetic control, which is what I was teaching in medical school, genetic control simply means control by genes. So people out there believe, oh, my cancer is caused by genes, my diabetes is caused by genes, whatever it is caused by genes. That's the belief. And I go, yeah, but the fact is this. Genes do not cause anything. Genes are not capable of turning themselves on and off. Genes have in bigger words, self-actualization, meaning genes don't make decisions. Genes are blueprints. They're blueprints to make the physical body parts. I go, well, why is it relevant? I say, because when you're building the body, the contractor calls up the blueprints. The blueprints don't call themselves up. And then they go, contractor? I go, yeah. The mind, the brain, the nervous system reads the world and then adjusts the body to deal with the world. So the mind calls up the genes. And now when I say epigenetic control, which is the new science, remember, genetic control, controlled by genes. New science, epigenetic control, sounds the same, but epi means above. So when I say epigenetic control, I am saying control above the genes. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, the genes don't control. I go, no, genes never control anything. Genes are blueprints. Epigenetics means the environment, and here's the one that I want people to just emphasize this one, the environment and our perception of the environment is what controls our genes. And I go, why is it relevant? Because we can alter the environment and we can change our perception, meaning then the genes are under our control. We're not under the control of genes. We control them. So here's important data fact. Less than 1% of disease is controlled by genes. So I say,
Hold on, Bruce, wait. Hold on. You got to say that again. Say that again.
Less than 1% of disease is controlled by genes. There are very few diseases that one gene causes disease. Hemophilia, for example, might be one of them. Tay-Sachs disease is another one like that. And I say, yeah, but my God, 99% of disease didn't come from the genes. It came from lifestyle and environment. And that's where epigenetics is the controlling factor. So 99% of health issues are not because the body is defective. 99% of health issues is that the driver of the body, the contractor, the brain, the mind, is not in harmony. And when it's out of harmony, the body is a complement. So the body is out of harmony. And if you look at it, it's like, well, it makes beautiful sense. It says if you're sick, it's a reflection of something that's not in harmony. And all of a sudden, so you blame the sickness. I got cancer. Oh, the cancer cells are stupid. And look what they did. They formed cancer. And I go, cancer cells aren't stupid. Cancer cells are just responding to your consciousness, and anger and deep hurt and issues that started as children are really the cause of the cancer. So why is it relevant? Because you say, oh, if the cancer's the problem, then if I just take the cancer cells out, fine, I'm healed. And I go, no. The cancer is a symptom of a problem. The cancer is a reflection of a problem. And the point is, you can take the cancer cells out, but if you don't fix the problem, the cancer is going to come back again.
Right.
And I say, well, how do you fix the problem? I say, those people who have cancer and then the cancer disappears, spontaneous remission, or even if you have to take it out surgically, will they get the cancer again? The answer is, if they change their issues of their lives, they won't get the cancer again. If they just say, no, it wasn't me, it was stupid cells, and I take out stupid cells, so I should be better. I go, no, you missed it. The cells were a mirror of the problem. They're not the problem. So dealing with cancer by saying killing the cancer cells is like, well, that's nice. It might slow down the issue, but it starts up here.
Right. First of all, this is very, very empowering. And, this kind of speaks, I think a good example is, and you mentioned this, less than 1% of all diseases are responsible. We're talking about genetic controlled, like somebody being born with an actual genetic defect. For the most part, we all get here with pretty good genes, and then something happens. Like you manifest cancer later in life, or diabetes or heart disease. Something changed. It wasn't the fact that you were born and ordained to have this, because it wasn't there in the beginning. And so what we're talking about here is in the realm of cancer, for example, and we've talked about this many times, but we all have cancer cells every day that occur.
Absolutely.
All of us, many, many cancer cells, but a healthy functioning immune system will go and take out those rogue cells. But by our lifestyle choices, our habitual thought patterns, and like you said, our perception is going to encourage us to make certain decisions. And we might even put ourselves in the way of more carcinogenic environment. And
but the interesting part is, well, again, the carcinogenic environment focuses that it was the chemicals that are causing the problem. And the fact is, we're so powerful and we believe we're so frail and vulnerable that we can say, oh, a chemical caused this. I go, listen, here's a true thing. In the South, there are fundamentalist religious people that work themselves into religious ecstasy. They start speaking tongues and doing weird stuff, and they're called snake handlers, and they handle all these poisonous snakes. Now, interesting enough, about 3 or 4 months ago, one of them died from the bites, but most of the time they get a bite. There's no problem. They get bitten by a poisonous snake, and I go, yeah, that's called testifying. What is testifying? In their system of belief, they say that God is so powerful and they believe in God so much that they will do something no normal person in their right mind would ever do, like pick up and play with a rattlesnake, because they know God protects them. So I go, okay, this is the point. Listen to this one, because it's like, if you get it, it's like blow your mind. They, in testifying, will drink strychnine poison in toxic doses, with the belief that God will protect them from this poison. And guess what? No harmful consequences. They could drink strychnine poison with no harmful consequences. How the hell can you do that? And I go, their belief system is so strong that they actually, you can block the influence of strychnine. You can, the average thing that people do all the time, but you got to emphasize it again, is walking across hot coals.
Yeah.
You can walk across hot coals, but you have to have your belief system in a place where you absolutely believe this is really, you can do it. Because if you're in the middle of the walk and you have a moment of doubt, you're in the middle of a moment of doubt, can I do this? Boom, you just got burned.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're speaking to This is the first time I've ever talked about this publicly. Walked on hot coals. I did that, walked across the fire. And a
Yeah,
friend of mine actually got burned, And by the way, it's one of those situations where, if you're in the environment, the peer pressure, you're just, but you really do have to get your mind right. And the problem is, Bruce, is that we don't really believe what we say we believe. And that's
that's the
really
truth.
where the work is, and when we talk about faith and then we believe that it's really all our responsibility and we actually are not demonstrating that we have that faith when we're taking steps in our lives. And just to go back really quickly, I think this is so important. But when you mentioned earlier about the placebo effect and how that ties into this, if you look at the research, you'll see about on average, placebos being about 30% effective in clinical trials. That is
Absolutely.
insane. And this is a fake treatment, a fake surgery or a fake drug, and
Fake
somebody getting
surgery,
that
that's the
response.
other one. Fake surgery. I mean, you could say, okay, fake drugs, I can get it, but surgery turns out to be a placebo influence as well. I mean, they do what is called arthroscopic surgery, those people with bad knee joints. And they go in and they scrape the cartilage and flush the fluid. And then people start walking better. They go, oh, yeah, that was great. Arthroscopic. I don't know how many 100,000 people get that. But in a study recently, not that recently, a surgeon he wanted to find out which part of the procedure was the effective part, scraping the cartilage or replacing the fluid. So one of the people who organized said, well, you have to do a sham operation, a fake operation as a control. And he said, what do you mean fake operation? It's the real. You don't fake. But they decided they would do it. So what they do is they would cut the little slots on the side of the knee, which they do in a normal preparation. But the rest of the procedure was never done. Although the person who was under general anesthetic could hear the doctors talking, oh, yeah, now we're scraping, now we're doing all this. And they even put a video on the screen of somebody else's knee surgery. So
Wow.
the patient is looking at the screen and thinking, oh, I'm getting all the surgery. They didn't do it. And it turned out the sham operation had the same exact effect as the operation where they actually scraped the cartilage and replaced the fluid. In other words, the operation was completely placebo effect. The whole damn arthroscopic surgery is placebo effect. And it's like, oh my God, because in the study, there was no difference between whether they actually did the surgery or the person believed they did the surgery.
If you could, I would love to really kind of dive in a little deeper and talk about this connection between our cells and our experiences as humans. One of the things that I learned from you was looking at the cell itself as part of a community, but even the cell itself is an individual in the things that it does, all the different functions as far as digestion, respiration. So can you talk about that connection? Because again, we think that we're so different from our cells, but it's just not so. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. In exactly the same way that the internet allows us to have this conversation and connect a lot of people, the internet, theoretically, you can have one person talk to 8 billion people. You can have, theoretically, that's true. What's interesting is that the cells in our bodies have antennas on their surface to receive environmental signals, just like television antennas, but they're made out of proteins, okay? Mm-hmm. No two people have the same antennas. This is why we can't trade body parts or cells with each other. In other words, why? And I say, because the antennas are receiving a broadcast of coordination. So 50 trillion cells are on the same station, listening to the same broadcast and behaving. If you have to run because of a saber-toothed tiger, then 50 trillion cells are like, okay, we're in run mode right now. If I put somebody else's cells in my body with a different set of antennas, they're receiving a different broadcast. So what it means is that the transplanted cells are not in harmony or coordinated with the main system. Okay? So the idea is this. Every cell is an individual cell, but every cell has an antenna, there's a group of them called self-receptors, that are tuned to your broadcast from the brain. So when the brain makes an image, 50 trillion cells, or it's just like you at home right now turn on the internet or something and see something going on in China. It's like, wow, okay, I'm right there, I'm watching it. Well, 50 trillion cells are watching what you're watching. 50 trillion cells are in harmony. Why? Because the community is all held together by this nervous system, okay? So the relevance about all that is then, even though a cell is an individual cell and has its job, a cell has a job just like all of us have jobs. A heart cell is a pumping cell, a liver cell is a filtering cell, a blood cell is a transport cell, whatever. Although all cells have different jobs, they're still listening to the same station. And that's how a thought can affect 50 trillion cells simultaneously, because the cells are listening to these thoughts. So the relevance is then my mind is coordinating 50 trillion cells by a broadcast. It's interesting, just like the shocking consequence of this understanding is when a person receives a heart transplant. The first thing you have to do is, if you're going to transplant an organ into a body, you have to stop or inhibit the immune system of the recipient.
Right.
Because the immune system will say, when the cells come in, it's got different antennas. It says, it's not us. These antennas are not, they're marching to a different drummer. You have to take these cells out. So the immune system eliminates them. So if you're going to transplant an organ, you have to shut down the immune system. But then now you have, let's say I move a heart from person A to person B. When person B has that heart, the antennas on that heart are still tuned in to the identity of that person. That consequence of spirituality, the consequence that we are more than this body. And the answer is yes, we are. And to give the example of it, this is where I was going with it. If I take cells out of your body, Shawn, and move them 40 miles away, and I have an electro readout, like the same kind of thing like lie detector, galvanometer response, to read the electrical activity of the cells. And I pipe that into the room where you are right now. So on a screen right next to you, I could see the electrical activity of the cells 40 miles away, okay? And this has been done. If I can elicit an emotional response in you, the cells 40 miles away instantaneously will activate their electrical activity. How can that happen?
Yeah.
And the answer is because they have the antennas to your identity. And whether you're physically here, your identity is more of a broadcast that's part of your spirit and your mind, and it's going out in the field. So wherever your cells are, if they're 40 miles away, they're still going to respond to your broadcast wherever you are at this moment. So when the heart is transplanted, it picks up the characteristics of the person who was the owner of that heart, who still has the broadcast, okay? And so why is it relevant? One of the stories, there's a whole book of stories about individuals with heart transplant and how their lives have changed. One of them was a story of a young girl who received a heart from another young girl. Obviously, the other young girl's dead. And she gets the heart, and once it's implanted and starts working, she has nightmares every night of being murdered. Same murder, same scene, every night. So the doctors trace back and find out, yes, the girl who donated the heart was murdered. So the police talk to the recipient, the heart recipient, and she describes the nightmare vividly, which we played every night. And with that description, the police apprehended the murderer.
This is some Netflix stuff right here. New series. Bruce Lipton produced right here.
The book is called Change of Heart. And there's other stories about like a woman who was a complete vegetarian, health freak and all that stuff, gets a heart and immediately has these cravings for chicken McNuggets and beer. And you've heard that story probably. And the reality was, tracing it back, finding out the person who donated the heart, that was their favorite food. And all of a sudden it's like they transplanted the heart and she now has a new favorite food, chicken McNuggets and beer. It's like, where the hell did that come from? It's like the broadcast.
That's
broadcast,
so powerful, you know. And one of the things that, I mean, this is just mind-blowing stuff. And I remember looking into some of these studies and seeing, I believe some of this was even done by the U.S. military, and looking at if we take cells and we put them somewhere else, your cells, and then we expose you to a stimulus, you know, maybe it's something, maybe you're getting shocked or maybe you're experiencing joy, but your cells respond accordingly to your feeling and to your experience, even if they're not in your body. That's crazy stuff. But this goes beyond, and this is what you do and bring to one of the things that I'm still battling with myself and trying to communicate to people is that it takes time for the books to change. You know, people right now are learning bad science in university settings. And I
Yeah.
see you're like, oh my God. But, you know, what we can do here, especially with the advent of the internet and having shows like this, we can get ourselves at the forefront of the education and go and dig into the research ourselves. And it really is amazing. And the things that you've created are very helpful in making the science make sense and making real world tangible application. Now, I want to talk to you about something I was taught wrongfully in school. Now, I've shared this story before, Bruce, but this first time you're going to hear it. So today I'm madly in love with science. I think about it all the time. I think about my wife and I think about science. That's kind of my life, you know. So I'm in love with both, you know. But prior to going through my own health challenges, I detested science. Like I couldn't stand it. I still had nightmares up until even a few years ago about being in biology class and not having my homework done, all right? And I was taught that the brain of the cell was the nucleus. So can you share how this is not actually accurate and where the real brain of the cell can be found?
Yeah. The reason why the nucleus was selected as the brain of the cell is the nucleus is where the genes are. At least 98% of the genes in the body are in the nucleus. Then we go with the belief that is now wrong and completely outdated, and that is genes turn on and off. And that was the belief that genes are self-regulating, so that a cancer gene turned on and then I got cancer or whatever. This gene turned off and I got that. And we then attributed that genes control themselves. This was an error in our insight about the nature of genes, that it is completely false, that genes do not control themselves. Genes are controlled by proteins, which are then controlled by the environment. So I say, why is it relevant? Because I say, well, in the nucleus, you have all the genes. And I go, yeah, but they're just blueprints. And I go, yeah, but what are they for? Reproduction. It's like, wait a minute. Then the nucleus cell isn't the brain of the cell. The nucleus is the gonad. Absolutely. Why? You can take the nucleus out, and I say, what is the immediate consequence of taking the nucleus out of the cell? The cell doesn't die. The cell doesn't lose control. The only thing it can't do now is reproduce the parts or reproduce itself. So the nucleus wasn't controlling the biology at all. It was just for the reproduction. So at some point, when I was working with my stem cells that I talked about, where I changed the environment and then changed the genetics, the question was, well, how is that being activated? How is that information from the environment controlling genes? You see, that's why my colleagues back in 1967, 70, when I was doing this research, looked at me and go, I don't know what it is, Lipton, but it's not really relevant. We're working with genes. You know, and my story was, who cares about the genes? It's not the genes anyway, it's the environment. But they didn't listen to me because what was the mechanism? And I didn't have the mechanism. Yeah. I just knew that the environment was going to change the genes because I could see the result. My results then led me to say, well, where's the information coming into the cell and controlling the cell? And that led to the skin of the cell called the cell membrane. The cell membrane, at that time when I was working on it, people thought it was just like plastic wrap.
Right.
Hold the contents of the cell. That's all it did, just hold the cell together, because it had a very simple structure. My assessment of that simple structure, it's made out of these lipid molecules and there are proteins in there. And I was, trying to look at how does this thing work and describing it in conventional terms, describing the structure of the membrane, which didn't say anything about how it worked. It just it's a barrier. Big deal. But when I started to define the membrane in a different way, and it happened in a moment of time, my life was transformed from a non-spiritual genetic molecular biologist into a spiritual biologist in 1 minute. I go, how did that happen? I had 40-some years, no spirituality. 1 minute later, boom, spirituality. I go, because in looking at how the membrane influenced the control of the information in the cell, I redefined the membrane in a way I never did before. I worked on it for years, but I never wrote this description. And so it was like 1:59 in the morning, and I'm writing this description, and I write down, here's the description of the cell membrane. Sounds a little complicated, but it goes, The cell membrane is a liquid crystal semiconductor with gates and channels. I wrote that down by looking at the structure and organization, and then I wrote it down. I said, wait, 1985. I go, I've heard that exact same definition. Where? And I realized I had just bought my first Macintosh, and I got a book from Radio Shack, Understanding Your Microprocessor, a simpleton book about how the damn computer works, okay? I go, oh my God, I think I open up the book on the microprocessor, and there in the introduction of the book, a computer chip is a crystal semiconductor with gates and channels. And at the first instant, I go, wow, it's got the same definition, membrane and computer chip, same definition. Wow. I thought that was really interesting. And then a couple of seconds later, I started to say, well, wait, this part of the membrane correlates with this part of the computer chip, and this part of the membrane correlates with that part of the computer chip. And at one moment, within that minute, I said, oh my God, the cell membrane is an information processor. It is a computer chip, a carbon-based computer chip. Signals from the environment are picked up by the membrane, translated into biology, and the signal is then sent into the cell, and that signal controls the behavior and the genetics. And what I realized at that moment, as everything was coming in, not only is a cell membrane an analog, actually a homolog, that means identical to a computer chip. The computer chips that we talk are silicon-based, silicon chips. The computer chip I'm talking about is a carbon chip because the membrane is made out of carbon molecules. So it's not silicon, it's carbon-based computing. But then I also recognized the nucleus, which we thought was whatever the program is, the nucleus, that is your life. That's what we believed. That was genetic determinism. This is your gene, this is your life. I realized, oh my God, the membrane is the chip. The nucleus is a disk with programs. It's a hard drive. It's got programs in it. But what was the coolest part? It wasn't read-only. It wasn't, oh, that's your gene, that's your program. It's read-write. That's where epigenetics came in. The environment can change the reading of your genes. So how many genes you have, 20,000 genes, you can make over 3,000 variations of proteins, which that's what a gene does. It's a blueprint to make a protein. For every blueprint, every gene you have, I can make 3,000 or more variations based on the environment. Amazing. And it's like, oh my geez, I can rewrite my genetics on a moment-by-moment basis on how I'm dealing with the environment. It's a read-write chip. And then at the last thing, which we just went over a little while ago, I said, well, wait, there's a PIN number. I can get into my cells, but I can't get into your cells. We can stand right next to each other. Our cells are reading the environment. I go, yeah, we're both reading the environment, but guess what? I'm reading it through a filter of my identity, my personal identity receptors. You're reading it through your self receptors, and those are the identities. So in other words, we can be in the exact same environment, but our identities can read it in different ways. And that's how two people can be in the same place and have totally different responses to the same environment that they live in. But the whole thing is, what happened in 1 minute? I went from genes controlling biology through the action of genes to no, the membrane controls biology through the action of the environment, that the genes are writable. I can change them. I can have a mutant gene and make it normal. But in the case of disease, I can have a normal gene and make it a mutant gene. I can make cancer out of normal cells, just how I respond to the world. And then lastly, in that 1 minute was my identity, the PIN number that is talking to these 50 trillion cells is a broadcast. And it's like, oh my God, the broadcast is here. And my body is like a television set, 50 trillion cells with antennas tuned to my broadcast. So you're looking at this body here. This is a television set playing the Bruce Show right now. I'm playing the Bruce Show, and you're playing the Shawn Show. Why? Because your broadcast from the environment is who you are. And that's why when you transplant a heart from A to B, person's A, their broadcast is still controlling that heart. even if they're dead. Why? The broadcast it's like a television set. You're watching a TV, the TV breaks, you say TV's dead. I go, yeah, it's not working. But I say, is the broadcast still there?
Still
Yes,
there.
the answer is you get a new TV, plug it in, turn it on, and tune it to the station. It's back online.
So you just shared something very important, which is we've got 20,000 genes approximately collectively. And the Human Genome Project proved that, people are thinking, oh, there's 100,000 or more different combinations. It just wasn't true. But what we have is very different, 3,000, as you mentioned, approximately different expression potentials of that same gene blueprint. Amazing. And so
Right.
how do we tune in? This is what I want to talk to you about. And we're going to tune into this after this break. But I want to talk about the fact that most of us don't really know our PIN number. All right. So we need to open up the envelope, find out what the PIN number is so we can start to change what's going on in our subconscious and get better printouts. So we're going to do that right after this quick break. So sit tight and we'll be right back. Massive research is now pouring in with this blossoming field of science and nutrition called nutrigenomics. And this field is studying how every single molecule of food that you eat impacts your genetic expression. So we're literally talking about how your body appears, your health, or lack thereof. All of this is going to be determined by every single molecule of food that you eat. So whether it's a banana or a donut or a Hot Pocket, whatever it might be, we have to be in tune with the fact that this is going to impact what genes are getting expressed. And there are genes like the FTO gene, for example, that has been found to be this, quote, fat gene and have a high propensity towards obesity if you carry this gene. Now, you can silence these genes by making sure that you're eating real foods that are in alignment with your own genetic integrity. The basis of that needs to be from earth-grown nutrients, things that your body actually recognizes as real food, that you have a history with, that your ancestors have a history with, not things that have been invented in a laboratory like last week. All right, so we want to make sure that we're eating real food that are from earth-grown nutrients. And this is why I love On It so much. This is why they are family. This is why I endorse them so powerfully, because they are part of my life. They're a part of my family's life. And I want to make sure that you head over to onit.com/model. That's ONNIT.com/model. And you're going to get 10% off all of their health and human performance supplements. I'm a huge fan of the Hemp Force protein. I've been using it for many years. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And I give this to my kids as well. And this is one of the things that I love to have post-workout. Now, hemp is based on some powerful amino acids, some powerful protein building blocks like albumin, which is a very soft globular protein that's very easy to digest, plus edestin. And this is a unique protein compound that's found in hemp that might be the most bioavailable, usable protein for the human body. Crazy, right? So a lot of people today are hearing about the benefits of hemp seeds and hemp protein and hemp oil, things like that. We want to make sure, again, that you're getting organic and that it's made with integrity, right? So that this cold process, so that you're actually able to get the nutrients that you're looking for in this kind of protein powder, protein cake that you're getting with Hemp Force protein from On It. So they've got multiple flavors. They've got the Choco Maca. They've got the Vanilla Acai. And they also have a brand new recovery protein that adds in the powerful component of colostrum, which has every single amino acid, every polysaccharide, AKA essential sugar, and every essential fatty acid right there in it. These powerful building blocks, growth factors, every growth factor that influences your body's metabolism is there in that protein, the recovery protein. So make sure that you're checking that out as well. Super powerful stuff. Also has immune factors to help fortify your immune system. Just great stuff. And they've got exercise equipment, tons of great foods. Head over, check them out today. Onit.com/model. ONNIT.com/MODEL for 10% off. Now back to the show. All right, we are back and we're talking with the world-renowned Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, who wrote a book, let me grab it, that is one of the most marked up books that I have. And I've actually read this. This is one of the, just a handful of books, maybe 10 books that I've read multiple times, The Biology of Belief. So make sure to check out The Biology of Belief. It is essential in your library. And we were just talking about the fact that in a way, we don't really know our power. We don't know how to tap in and change what's going on in our subconscious. And he broke down how much our thoughts and our environment determine our genetic expression, thus our experience. And so that's what I want to ask you about. Can you share a few tips on helping us to reprogram our subconscious for better results? Give us that PIN number so we can start making some changes.
Cells respond to environmental signals. Sure. I put a cell in a culture dish, change the environment, and immediately the cell will adjust its biology to conform to the environment. But when you're in a human body as a cell, you don't get to see the real environment. My liver cell doesn't see what I'm doing right now talking to you. It's inside a community with trillion others, 50 trillion other cells in that world. And I said, but how does the liver cell, which is supposed to adjust its biology to the environment, and the liver cell is not touching the environment, it's deep inside. So how does the liver cell know what's going on in the environment so it can adjust its biology? And the answer is the nervous system. The nervous system reads the environment and sends signals to the body of what's going on in the world. I go, why is it relevant? And this is the bottom line. Because my cells do not see the real world. The cells see the world that I interpret. Is it a safe world or a scary world? My liver cell only knows what I believe. And if it's a safe world, but I believe it's a scary world, then my liver cell is getting what message? Not that it's a safe world. It's getting the scary message, okay?
Fight or flight.
And I say, why is it relevant? And the answer is relevant is because the cells do not respond to the real world. They respond to your perception of the world. And so it's your belief about the world that is adjusting your genetics. If you have fear about the world, then you shut down the maintenance and growth of the body because fear gets you ready for fight or flight. Okay? And so why does 90% of the illness on this planet, 90% is minimum, related to stress? And the answer is because stress is a picture of fear that you're not going to succeed. And that what's going to happen is you have to get ready for fight or flight. So do 50 trillion cells in my body know if I'm in a war zone or am I in an imaginary war zone? The answer is the cells don't know the difference of the real one and the imaginary one. They're just getting my interpretation. So that's why when we talk about placebo effect, I send a signal of, oh, healing is coming. We now have the right drug. And it turns out to be a sugar pill, but the chemistry of healing is what came from the mind. Okay. And I go, yeah, positive thinking, that's what placebo's effect can change your health. You can have terminal cancer and then have a belief change and then have spontaneous remission. That's how powerful it is. And we talk about this and most everybody goes, yes, Shawn, they all know, yeah, placebo effect, positive thought turns into healing. I go, yeah, but please listen to this. A negative thought is equally powerful in controlling the biology. So as much as a positive thought can heal you, a negative thought can kill you. It can make any disease. You can have a negative thought about cancer and manifest cancer. You have no genes that are even cancer-related genes. And it's like, where the hell did it come from? You are creating your biology as a complement to what you see. So if you see a positive world, then you're getting positive vibes coming in and it feels really great. And if you live in a negative world or one you believe to be negative, then the cells are inside cowering going, oh my God, it's not safe out there. And so my cells are just adjusting to my perception. So changing your perception is like, well, where's that? And I go, that's your mind. I go, what's the mind? I go, there, now we got a problem because the mind, you put the mind, and the mind means, oh, one mind? I go, no. There are at least two minds that make the mind. So I say, oh, what are the minds? I go, conscious mind, subconscious mind. They're interdependent. And very important, each mind has a different function, and more importantly, each mind learns in a different way. I go, oh, what is it? And I go, the latest evolution of the brain, conscious mind, right behind your forehead, prefrontal cortex, latest evolution of the brain, that's creative. So the evolution of the creative conscious mind is what has taken humans from regular animals into making spaceships and computers. Right. Creative, okay? And I say, oh, yeah, creative. I say, how does it learn? Well, it's creative. It can learn in any way. It can watch this podcast. It could read a self-help book. It can go to a lecture. You can go, aha, and the conscious mind will change its belief system. It's creative. It's open to any way of learning. I go, great. So I say, wishes and desires are the substance of the conscious mind. Creative. Shawn, what do you want from your life? That's a creative question. What do you want? And you answer it, you have to create something that may not even exist. So by definition, creativity comes from conscious mind. Wishes and desires come from conscious mind. And if biology is controlled by the conscious mind, you manifest wishes and desires. But the second mind is called the subconscious mind. That's the original brain. It's about 90% of the mass of the brain is subconscious, below conscious, meaning, look, your heartbeat's being controlled, digestion's occurring. You learn things like walking, and then it becomes a habit. So the habits of your body are in the subconscious mind. Conscious mind's creative, subconscious mind's habitual. And people say that subconscious mind's evil. I go, no, subconscious mind's a record device, records a behavior and plays it back. It's not evil, it's just a machine. The programs might be evil, but the machine is great. I mean, consider this, Shawn. You learned how to walk before you were 2. It's a subconscious program. Thank God you got a subconscious mind. You never have to learn how to walk again. You learn how to ride a bike. You learn how to drive a car. Once you learn, it becomes a habit. And once it's a habit, it resists change. Habits don't want to change. If habits would change, they wouldn't be habits anymore. So the subconscious mind is not creative, it's habits. You learn how to do something, and if you just push the button, it will play the program. 100 years. You could, if you live to be 101 years old, you could say, I've been walking on a program 100 years old. I never changed. So I go, okay, subconscious mind, habits, resist change. Conscious mind, creative, open to change. They're very different, okay? So the reality is this. Our conscious mind is the creative mind and has wishes and desires, relationships, jobs, health, all those things that you want. Conscious mind. And then I go, oh, there's another character of the conscious mind. This one is what blows the system out of proportion, and that is this. The conscious mind can think. I say, think. I say, yeah, hey, Shawn, tell me what you're doing on Sunday. If you actually are going to try and get the answer for that, don't look around the room. It's not there. The answer to that is in your head. So I say, if I have a thought, my conscious mind is directed inward. Where's the answer to what you're doing on Sunday? It's not out here. So I say, well, the conscious mind lets go of dealing with the outside world. Does that mean you stop whatever, you're walking down the street, you have a thought? Does that mean, thought, conscious mind's thinking, everything stops? I go, no, you keep walking. You're driving the car and you have a thought. You keep driving the car. I say, yeah, but the conscious mind's busy. I go, then who's driving the car? Who's walking? I go, those are habits. They come from the subconscious mind. So here's the point. Conscious mind's creative, subconscious mind's habitual. Conscious mind can think, so therefore it may not pay attention. And when this is it. When the conscious mind is thinking, the subconscious is autopilot. It knows how to walk, it knows how to drive the car, it knows how to do your job, anything you've done for habits, it knows how to do. You don't need to think about it. And then now I go, now the monkey wrench of life, and this is the monkey wrench, the monkey wrench. Thinking occupies the conscious mind 95% of the day. You say, so? Then I say, then your creative wishes, desire mind is only working 5%. Because 95% it's inside thinking. And I go, yeah, but then who's running the show? I go, well, subconscious. And I go, wait, then my subconscious programs are running 95% of my life. And I go, yeah, because conscious is busy. I go, well, then where did I get the subconscious programs? In the first 7 years of your life, you download behaviors by observing other people. Your brain functioning, and the first 7 years of your life, the predominant brain activity is a vibration called theta. When you put wires on your head, EEG, theta. Theta is imagination. Yeah, that's where kids live in the imaginary and real world simultaneously. They're riding a broom. The mother says, "Give me the broom." The kid says, "I don't know what you're talking about. This is a horse." When the kid's
Right.
riding the broom,
Harry
it's a
Potter.
horse in their mind. Theta. But theta is hypnosis. So I say, oh, so
Right.
the first 7 years, my conscious mind is not working. My subconscious is in hypnosis. What is it doing? Downloading behavior by observing other people.
Hmm.
I say, why? Then I give a very simple, I go to the iPod store, Apple. I buy a new iPod, brand new. The front of the iPod's called touchscreen. That's the creative part. Like that, I can make a playlist, adjust the volume, EQ. It's creative. It's the equivalent of the conscious mind. So I get the brand new iPod, take it out of the store, take it out of the box, push play, nothing happens. Being an old dinosaur, I'm freaking out. I just spent all the damn money and the damn thing isn't working. Some little 7-year-old kid right next to me goes, "Hey, mister, you didn't download any music. How do you expect to play anything?" It's like, oh, before you can use the creative touchscreen, you first have to download the programs. Then you can become creative. And so I say, the exact same thing occurs in the mind. Before you can be conscious, you have to have something to be conscious of.
Right.
I go, well, what's relevant is the mind is like the iPod. In other words, for consciousness to work, I have to download programs. And that's why the first 7 years is downloadable programs. And then the recognition is that the behaviors in the subconscious mind are not yours. They don't answer your wishes and your desires. They're copied from other people. And I go, well, why is that relevant? Because I said, we are only using the conscious mind 5% of the time. That means 95% of your life by default is coming from the subconscious. I go, yeah, and what does that mean? I go, the fundamental programs in the subconscious mind do not support your wishes and desires. And in fact, up to 70% of the programs that we download at that time period, up to 70% of those programs are negative and disempowering and self-sabotaging. So I go, net result, in day-to-day life, I am not running my life with the conscious mind. I am running it with programs, most of them disempowering, and they're invisible. Why? It's called subconscious. And why is it playing? Because if the conscious mind's busy, I'm still automatically on autopilot playing the program.
So what this
yes.
really does tune in and helps us to understand why, because for so many of us, we're like, I want to think positive thoughts. I want to change my life. So, but we're at this place where, and thank you for clarifying this, these programs are implemented very deeply thanks to this theta state that we're in. But today, as we're adults, how in the world do we get in there and start to switch out some of these programs?
Okay, the idea is this. The subconscious mind learns in a different way than conscious mind. Conscious mind, creative, as I said, learns in any variety of ways. Subconscious mind learns in two principal ways, and a third way is just new. The two principal ways, the first 7 years, is hypnosis, theta.
Right.
So if you want to put a program in subconscious, then hypnosis or auto-hypnosis, putting earphones on your head at night and playing a program as you go to bed of what you want. Because the moment your conscious mind checks out and going to sleep, your brain is in theta. So every night there is a period of theta just after you are starting to fall asleep. If you put the earphones on, then the program is directly being downloaded in the subconscious. That's a way of doing it. I said, yeah, but theta worked until age 7. Then I said, well, what happened after age 7? You still learn things. You learn how to drive a car, ride a bike, do all these things. I go, practice, repetition. Mm-hmm. So after age 7, programs can be put in by a process of repetition, which is an actual process. It's not a sticky note on the refrigerator. That's a suggestion. A repetition requires a behavior that is repeated. And the idea about it is you want to really make something you don't have. So that kind of feels strange. It's sort of like, there's a phrase which I love currently that describes it. It says, fake it till you make it. Meaning, if you want to be happy and you're not happy, then every day you just say to yourself, I'm happy. I'm happy. You consciously keep repeating, I am happy. I am happy. Why? At some point of repetition, the subconscious picks it up. And when the subconscious picks it up, you don't even have to say I'm happy. The subconscious job is to take that program and make it real. So whatever program you put into the subconscious, it's going to operate 95% of the day. And if you put in I am happy, I am successful, I am healthy, these kind of programs, then 95% of the day, the subconscious is supposed to be manifesting that. So the two fundamental ways of changing the subconscious are A, hypnosis, B, repetition of a behavior. C, I need to add this one because the first two I just mentioned are time consuming. It takes a period of time to download new behaviors that way. There's a new technology called energy psychology. It's a new version of psychology that involves super learning. Super learning, just to give you an idea, those are the people that read a book by opening the page and then just moving their finger down the page. As fast as they move the finger down, as fast as they read the book. So those are the people that can go in the bookstore and in a couple of minutes read an entire book by just moving their fingers down the page. If you use that process, you can download new behaviors in the subconscious in about 10 minutes. And these are so important. On my website, simple, brucelipton.com. There's under resources 20 or 30 different energy psychology modalities. These are what we need right now because these processes can take a whole lifelong program that's been sabotaging you in 5 or 10 minutes rewrite a program. And this is what we need to know right now. You got to do it. And let me close with this part because it's real important. You got programmed the first 7 years. Your program is run 95% of the day. Your question might be, I don't know what the program is. And the reason is I can ask you is, hey, Shawn, what did you learn when you were 1? What did you learn when you were 0? Oh, no. What did you learn in the last trimester of pregnancy when the programming started? No answer. So I go, so let's help people. And this is the real quick turnaround. 95% of your life is coming from the subconscious. Your subconscious is your life is a printout of your subconscious programs. That's your life. You've been running that. So I say, what does it mean? I say, look at your life and it's simple. The things you like that come into your life come in because you have programs to bring them in. But anything you work hard at, anything you struggle over, anything you sweat over, anything you have to make a lot of effort into making it happen, simple question. Why are you working so hard to get to this destination? And the answer, inevitably, you have a subconscious program that is preventing you from getting there. So all you have to do is look at your life and say, where's the struggle? And the first thing is, wherever that struggle is, your struggle is a play out of a program. Your program is creating the struggle. You want to change that struggle, then you put a new program about that struggle in. If it's a health issue, you got bad health at this point. It's like, no, I have to turn around. I am healthy. And I say, it doesn't sound right. I said, fake it till you make it. I am healthy. I am healthy. I am healthy. Repetition. Using energy psychology, using auto-hypnosis. Once you put those programs in, then they will run 95% of the day, and you will become empowered.
Dr. Lipton.
Bruce.
Bruce,
Yes.
You have truly, again, transformed my thinking, and I'm so grateful for you sharing these insights today. And I highly encourage people to hop over to brucelipton.com and take advantage of these resources because at the end of the day, he shared the 3 different modalities, which is tapping into that theta. There's all kinds of cool stuff there, binaural beats, there's hypnosis and things like that. But, some of us might be in fear, like, I don't want to get hypnotized and then, all of a sudden I'm like a monkey hitting the drum, like I'm Homer Simpsoned out because of hypnotism. But then we've got this opportunity with repetition and this fake it till you make it and imbuing that with the feelings, really feeling the feelings and until you start to believe it and laying down more myelin in your brain for that program. Yep. And then the third component, which is super learning. And Dr. Lipton is the guy to really connect with to get this information. So last question, if you could share with me, I've been wanting to ask you this for a while. What is the model that you're here to set with the way that you're living your life personally?
Okay. What I acquired in my belief through all of this stuff was the reality that maybe the greatest cosmic joke in the world is the joke that if we live a good life, when we die, we go to heaven. I think it's a joke because I look at it now in a completely different way. My belief is this: you were born into heaven. We were born here to create and to experience. And this is what the whole system is all about. This is, we are creative people. And I go, yeah, but what's heaven? I say, heaven's creative. And you go, yeah, but look at this world. This sucks. This doesn't look like the world of heaven. I go, because we're not creating from our wishes. We're creating from our programming. The programming that we got is disempowering us and creating this world that we have been programmed to be a participant in this world. And so we are co-creating negative crap right now. The movie The Matrix is not science fiction. The movie The Matrix is a documentary. Everybody got programmed. Yes, the first 7 years. The Jesuits have known that for 400 years. 400 years they've told people, give me a child until it's 7 and I will show you the man. What they were telling people, and people didn't even understand it, was if I get your first 7 years of programming, I own the rest of your life because 95% of your life is coming from that program. And so we've known that for 400 years. And the programming is even better than when the Jesuits started 400 years ago. So what's the point? We have been programmed to lose our power of creativity. Yeah. That we lost our power of creativity over our personal lives and our biology, as well as what's going on in the world around us. That if we want to get it back, then we have to recognize we have to let go of these programs and rewrite them. As in the movie The Matrix, there is an opportunity to take a red pill and you get out of the program. And my book called The Honeymoon Effect focuses on that because it says, isn't it strange how your life could suck every day, and then the day you meet this one person and all of a sudden you're in total love, and the next day it's heaven on earth? I said, your life sucked for 20 years and then one day later it's heaven on earth. And science now knows what was that radical change that happened in one day that changed your life? And the answer is, science has recognized when you fall in love, it's the equivalent of taking the red pill because you stay mindful. You don't default to the subconscious. I say the first day you didn't default to the subconscious program was your first day of heaven on earth. I go, you could have every day heaven on earth. It's when you go back to the program again, you lose it. So the whole reality is this. My belief is this is heaven. I came here, I'm creating. First 40 years, my creation wasn't that good because of programming. But since then, I've been living the honeymoon, heaven on earth, ever since 20 years of living in that way. And it's not that the world changed. I changed. I changed my belief system. And I'm just a student like anybody else is a student. And I had to learn from the cells this understanding, and when I applied it, it made a difference. And that's what if I leave on this point, it's very critical, Shawn. We've just had a wonderful experience of talking about educating the conscious mind, which is creative, and learn from the stuff we talked about. But to make a difference in your life, you walk away from here and I go, yeah, but guess what? 95% of your life is still going to be exactly the same as it was before you even heard this stuff. Why? Because that you're running from subconscious. Our conversation is not translated into subconscious. Why? Subconscious is repetition. Well, yeah, listen to this thing over again 100 times, then it'll probably download. Okay. Another form is hypnosis. No, we're not hypnotizing you. So basically, we've been educating conscious creative mind, but to make it work, you have to take this education and make it a program in the subconscious mind, because that's what's running 95% of the day. And that's an effort that requires something you have to do. So the once belief that if I just read the right self-help book, my whole life will be better. I go, no, you just educated conscious mind. If until you change subconscious mind, you have not changed. So the point of closure is there is an opportunity to create heaven on earth, not just for the honeymoon period, but to make it every day of your life. But to do that, you either have to stay out of the program or rewrite the program. And when you do that, you are free. You are free from this prison of belief, which makes us conform to the crap that's happening. Let go. It's heaven on earth, just like being in love every day.
Ah, love it. I love it. And I love you. Bruce, thank you so much for sharing your
Shawn,
gift. Oh,
I appreciate this opportunity, and I really am thankful for the audience, because I know that when they change and want heaven on earth, then we all will have heaven on earth when we let go of this programming.
Yes. Dr. Bruce Lipton, everybody check him out, brucelipton.com, and make sure to take advantage of his resources and his incredible book, The Biology of Belief. Dr. Lipton, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show today. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. Again, this was somebody who was on my list, my secret list of people to have on the show in its very inception, when this was just an idea, and this just speaks to the power of an idea and how we can bring things to fruition, because this was something that it wasn't a part of reality. But as he's been talking about today, being able to choose, being able to use that creative mind, but then digging deeper and deeper and deeper into that subconscious to really believe that I can make an impact bigger than what I was seeing, just seeing patients in my clinic. And also walking in that direction every day, the repetition. So it's kind of sprinkling in all the different pieces of this, even one of the things, and I haven't talked about this much on the show before, but, as you guys know, I wrote, international best-selling book, very thankful to say, Sleep Smarter. And we talked about the different stages of our brain waves, and the theta state is very close to being unconscious in a way. And we all tinker with that state when we're first rising, when we're first going to bed. And these are very powerful moments to really focus on the things that you really want, and the qualities and the characteristics that you really value. And I would, for a couple of years, right before I fall off to sleep, I would have this meeting in my mind of all of the people who I saw as my greatest mentors. And we'd sit at a table. It was usually 8 of us. And sometimes Dr. Bruce Lipton would sit in at the table as well. And I haven't shared that with him before, but he's hearing that today. And I would have these conversations, and I would drift off to sleep in that state, and I think that definitely had an impact on me for sure. And it's just about these practices. Or you can go to sleep thinking about, the Real Housewives of Atlanta, like whatever it is, you get to pick, so it's just being more empowered and in charge of our minds. And I've got to share this quote. This is from Albert Einstein. He said, "The most important decision that we make is whether we believe we live in a friendly or a hostile universe." And this is really a summation of, and I put Dr. Lipton on that same level, that same caliber of genius with Einstein. And this is what he's talking about today. We have to decide whether or not we're going to perceive our reality as something that is hostile or something that is friendly. Negative things do happen, but we get to interpret. A negative situation might happen, but it might call forth, instead of hatred, or instead of anger and disappointment, maybe this can be a call to action for compassion, or a call to action for you to develop the character of patience, of taking action to serve, right? We get to pick. And what tends to happen if we're unconscious of our programming is something happens and we respond with our programming. If you tend to be an angry person, a situation happens, you get angry. If you tend to be a person who slips into depression, a situation happens, you're going to get depressed. If you tend to be somebody who's of service and of seeing the brighter side of things, something's going to happen, and you're going to find a way to see there's some reward or gift in this situation. And we get to pick where we're coming from. None of them are right or wrong. It's just what we choose. So I appreciate you so much for choosing to take your time and to hang out with me and the incredible Dr. Bruce Lipton today. We've got some amazing, powerful guests coming up and some incredible show topics. So make sure to stay tuned and subscribe on all the different platforms, whether it's iTunes, Spotify. Make sure to check us out on Spotify and Stitcher Radio. Make sure to subscribe and stay up to date, because we're going to be dropping some powerful shows coming up. I appreciate you so much. Take care. Have an amazing day, and I'll talk with you soon.